Hi Steve, good morning. Sports session planners being a pain in the arse this morning, something to do with a flash plug. I haven't used it for a while to tell you the truth, but I thought I was going to do something quickly on there, but rather than funny about trying to sort out the flash on the Chrome or the Explorer browsers, I thought I'd do something on my whiteboard quickly. So the initial brief, I think, from Rob on Twitter was for a 20-minute practice, like your go-to session or a session that you enjoy that you think brings out a lot. So this is just a 20-minute practice rather than a whole session with kind of a whole part whole or technique, skill, small-sided game or functional practice kind of process. So probably not going to get you through a coaching practical on a course, but this is more about the real world and the type of session that I think brings out lots of different coaching points, lots of very realistic parts of the game that I think are really important in the modern game. So the idea here is that it's I started with defensive transition, but the more I thought about it, I was kind of in a kind of coaching practical mindset to start off with, but like as I say, in the real world, I want to be able to coach both the defenders and the attackers and bring out what I think is appropriate in a session rather than what would get you through a coaching qualification. So 3/4 size pitch. The idea is that you start off with a 2v1 in the centre circle. The defender, who's the one, plays the ball into the opponent's goalkeeper. At that point the ball is active. The fullback, so you have two fullbacks, one on either side. The goalkeeper can choose to play to either one. And as soon as the ball is received by either of those two fullbacks, then the other four players, so I don't know if you remember, but I said two defenders and two attackers. So you have the attackers and the defenders waiting here. The attackers join in, the defenders start slightly deeper because they have a longer recovery run. And this gives you two phases. First of all, the 4v1, when this guy when the fullback receives the ball here, the other fullback joins in. And there's only one defender. So for the time it takes for the ball to travel from here to here, the attackers can organise themselves in a way that will hopefully exploit a 4v1. At the same time, from a defensive point of view, the defender needs to delay. So in the coaching points here, I've put the first defender. There shouldn't be anything else in that defender's mind other than delay. You're only talking about 3 or 4 seconds, but that 3 or 4 seconds is the crunch in that first phase. Can the attackers go and exploit that 4v1 quickly? If they can't, then generally the ball is retaining possession while the other players join in. So now you've got 6v3, starts to become a little bit more organised, and then becomes a little bit more patient from an attacking point of view, and from a defensive point of view, they can start to look at concepts like balance, like how high their defensive line is, like whether they press, like whether or not they can use parts of the pitch to try and trap the attacking side in possession, and for example, to use the sideline as a defensive mechanism and try and press play into that area and take the opponents where they want them to go. Likewise with the attacking side of things, they've got to try and make it big. They've got to make it big in that first phase of 4v1 very quickly, and they've got to execute and play through quickly. If they fail to do that, then how do they exploit the 6v3? Can they use movements, attacking movements like underlapping and overlapping runs from wide? How do you actually exploit an overload, whether that's a 2v1, 4v2, 5v2? How do you exploit it? Generally it's by intelligent movement, taking defenders where they don't want to go and making sure that you execute when you create a chance. So that in essence is the first phase of it. In terms of progressions, there's obviously loads of different things you can do. You can add defensive cover, you can remove defensive cover, you can get the defenders to start from here. But for me, to make it most game realistic scenario, I like to see the defenders recovery run starting here, because this is quick transition. We're talking about a total of probably 7 or 8 seconds that are critical. So the thinking and the actions in that 7 or 8 seconds is what dictates whether or not the side who are in attacking transition actually expose an opportunity and penetrate, or if the opponents are given the time and then they don't maximise the opportunity, and the opponents have the time to get defensive organisation in place. So that's it. It's a 20-minute session. It depends on the numbers. I mean, in total, I think obviously you've got 11 players active in any one practice. if you've got a squad of 18, I would probably keep the defenders together and get them to repeat the habits, get them to repeat 3 or 4 practices, and then stop it and talk about what was good, what was bad, and what they can improve on, and perhaps 1 or 2 ideas. And then the attackers probably get a little bit more rest to start off with. But then obviously, for me, the vast majority of players on the football pitch need to understand the concepts we're talking about here. I think one thought that really came to mind was, I don't know if you remember the Wayne Rooney recovery run and challenge in the game for DC United a few months ago, which was incredible. There was a transition, they lost the ball at a set piece, a corner, and his recovery run into this area here, he demonstrated all the qualities that you'd expect a good defender to show, really, because he angled his run, he kind of pushed the attacker where he wanted to go, and when he took a bad touch, he took the opportunity to get in there and win the ball. So for me, this isn't just about the defenders in these coaching points, this is about every player having some kind of 360 understanding of transitions, and it doesn't necessarily, your position on the pitch, or your starting position on the pitch doesn't dictate your responsibilities in transition. Anyone could find themselves as the last man. What do they do there? And likewise, I'd like to see defenders being able to penetrate just as much as I'd like to see midfielders and attackers penetrate. Perhaps the only thing that I think is really position specific in this are the movements for the attackers in the first phase, when they're looking to maybe drag defenders away or create space to receive, and then perhaps go back inside. That is quite specific, but those are my thoughts. I don't think there's anything more to say other than, as I say, if you take it into a whole session, I'd potentially be looking at some invasion game to start off with, and you could perhaps use the invasion game, maybe some kind of 2 areas with 5 players in there, 5 players in there, and then if one team gets 5 passes off, then they get to break and you can allow 2 to go in there. That's a little session that I do with younger groups, and everyone usually enjoys that a lot. But for me, this is with a senior group, this is with your coaching, stopping, starting a little bit, so probably on conditions that are conducive to that, a reasonable day, not shitty cold weather where they're going to get freezing cold, probably on a day when you're not having too much physical load, or you don't want too much physical load. Keep it 20 minute session on this is fairly short, sharp, and intense work when they do go to work, but time to reflect, time to coach a little bit. Those are my thoughts. I hope that's helpful to you, pal. Hope the way I've done it, rather than doing it on a piece of paper, giving it to you, gives you a little bit more insight into my thinking. All the best, fella.